Hey Lon, hi folks, it's Lev. Welcome back to another video. For those of you who are new, I use he and pronouns. Today's video, I wanted to talk about emotional maturity and psychological maturity and how that whole task involves confrontation and just comparing where I was when I was younger to where I am now. First question to ask is, what is psychological and emotional maturity? And to me, it has many facets, as in many different elements built into one. It's not like a single thing, it's like multiple things combined to make one. For me, it involves being aware of emotions, being able to control emotions, being able to manage responses, as in, for example, not raging at someone just because they're raging at me, being able to control myself and respond in a way that I want, as opposed to letting the other person control how I respond. Being able to keep myself together when it gets stressful, as in, actually, yeah, be able to, in stressful situations or when it's chaos or something like that, being able to recognize my emotions and how it's impacting me in the moment, sort of thing, and how to like make space for it while being able to take steps to manage the situation as well. And as in, for example, not responding to chaos with emotions, but rather logic and thought out like steps, if that makes sense. Rewind to my teenage years and early 20s. So I'm 24 at the moment. Early 20s is in like my 20, 21, 22. I'd even say some of last year. And I'm not saying like I don't experience emotional out. I was gonna say outlash, but that doesn't make sense. Emotional like outbursts or like experience anger, frustration, and just like at someone or something in the moment. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'll explain on that further. But yes, when I was younger, actually I'll explain that now. Like experiencing these things are very human, and I'm not I'm not immune to it now that I've like become a better version of myself over the years. I'm not saying I'm immune to it just because I've grown. It still happens, and I acknowledge that it still happens and that it is okay. So yes, teenage years and earlier 20s. I firstly responded a lot out of emotion because I got defensive, and the reason I got defensive about things is because I didn't want my ego to be bruised, and my ego is trying to protect me from like having to confront things that I don't like. Like when someone called me out or something or said something about me that was actually a very fair point and true about my behavior, for example, I just basically shut people down. It's like, you're wrong. And I didn't want to hear what other people had to say. I shut them down, or I just ran away. There was no open sort of acceptance and inviting feedback in to better myself as a person. I didn't even take constructive criticism well. Like, even when people did not intentionally be malicious to me and they were just giving me feedback in a nice way to better me and like give me suggestions for improvement and stuff, I didn't take that well either. And that was in response to me as a person. And also I remember one assignment at university, I was so close to getting a high distinction and I didn't get a high distinction, and I felt so mad about it. I'm just like picking out like the marking of the tutor. I'm like, no, I should have got a mark here. I should have got a mark here. I should have got a mark here. And then that was an example of immaturity in a way, because I didn't want to hear that I was wrong, basically. And my ego just took full on control. My emotional lizard brain fully took control and responded in defense because it didn't want to hear anything. That part of me didn't want to hear anything whatsoever that conflicted what I know, conflicted my view of the world, conflicted my understanding of things, conflicted my core beliefs. And those emotional lash out and responses was me at a more emotionally immature state or version of life. Because, yeah. And a lot of that emotional outlash, and I also think of Outlast, the video game. Those emotional, like, very emotional heavy responses were basically, what I realize now, is a sign that I'm lacking something deep down. My psychological and emotional human needs are not being met. And in a sense, that might have been one way for me to communicate to the world and other people that I'm not getting what I need here, and I'm lacking, and I'm not doing well. But I'm gonna guess, most likely true, that I didn't know how to formulate things into words and like say it to people. And another thing about me back then, still experience it now, but to a lesser degree, is that I find it very hard to say what I need to people and ask for help. Even now, I mean, it's better, but it's still a challenge to me in asking for help and saying what I need, because a core belief of mine that I'm still trying to break out of is that I'm not good enough. And if that's my core belief, I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, I'm unworthy, I am not worth people's time, effort, and attention, that's the narrative that I'm basically living off, or my system is going off. That's the foundation. And that leads me not feeling good enough. That leads to, therefore, I shouldn't ask for help because I will burn in people. Therefore, I try to do everything alone and I contain everything in. And then once I try to contain everything in for too long and not let it out, it explodes in a way, in the form of, one form of it exploding out is emotional outbursts of people and lashing out and getting very, very defensive. This is slightly off topic, but whenever now I see hate on the internet, not necessarily towards me, like people bashing other people online, insulting, putting other people down, and stuff like that, I just look at these people and think there is much chaos going inside of your internal world, and there is a lot of unresolved shit that you don't like confronting, which was me. Like, I didn't like confronting shit, and now I don't like confronting some things, but I'm much better at confronting things, which I will touch on after I talk about this point. I see people who like do that, behave in that way, and think there's a lot going on inside that you haven't dealt with, and it is blowing up in the form of the way you talk to people and the way you respond and what you sort of put out into the world. And I would know, not that I attacked people online, I would know because I lashed out at people a lot, and those people don't sort of do it online. I did it in real life to a lot of people. No, I didn't like bully people or bash people, but then I just got very emotional at people, even if people did nothing directly wrong to me. Like, some little seemingly insignificant thing would just set me off and I would just explode. And looking back now, it wasn't a reflection of those people. It was a reflection of me and the shit I had going on inside. Leading on to my next point, which is, how did I start to become more emotionally and psychologically mature? And the biggest thing that has paved the way for that to happen is confronting things about the world, about other people, and particularly about myself that I didn't like to confront. And this comes in many forms, like hearing when I'm wrong, like people telling me that I'm wrong, basically, and being open to listening to that, people giving me feedback and constructive criticism, and being open to listening to that, being able to manage my ego, like not like completely ignoring my ego and be like, fuck you, bye, like you don't exist. Acknowledging that the ego has been trying to protect me and its place, but then just being gentle towards it and saying stuff like, I know you've been trying to protect me this whole time, but in this situation, it's okay. We can hear what this person has to say, or we can hear what I have to say to myself, and not letting the ego be like the giant boulder that blocks all the life, all the light at the entrance of the tunnel, and not letting anything in at all. Yes, listening to people, even telling myself that I'm wrong, like not lying to myself and make a mistake or actually being wrong in an argument, or the other person has a valid point that I shut down, for example. Telling myself, you are not like, not not completely invalidating myself. Yeah, not completely invalidating myself, but then acknowledging that the other people or the other side of me or whatever it may be has fair points and raise great things, and not basically not thinking that I'm the only right person in this story, or that my version of the story or my understanding of a situation is the only valid version, basically. And this stung a lot. Like it stung a lot. Like I hated doing it. It made me feel very ashamed, guilty. It stung my ego significantly and be like, oh fuck, you're not as good as you God, I shouldn't say that. You're not good. I was gonna say you're not as good as you think you are, but that's just belittling myself, so ignore that line. Just, there is room for me to be better, and I guess experiences, different people and stuff highlight to me that these are gaps that you can work on to improve yourself. And I also take pretty much now, I take every incident that happens, whether it's seemingly big or small, as a way to reflect and better myself as a person. Like something as seemingly simple as I reacted emotionally for 2 seconds in response to something someone said, instinctually reacted emotionally, and then 2 seconds later thinking, whoa, where did that come from? And then asking myself, where did that come from? And why did that come out? And then just sort of digging deeper and being like, oh, I reacted this way because deep down I felt hurt because what the person said, or this thing that I saw, or whatever it is, links to this. And it always links back to some core belief somehow. Core belief of like feelings of worthiness, worthiness, good enough, feeling connected, feeling belonged, or being able to be authentic to myself, reconnecting with my truth. Something that happened and I respond automatically in a emotional manner. It threatens one of these. I realize it threatens one of these underlying core human needs of psychological and emotional human needs of mine, and that's why I react that way instinctually, because it threatens something very innate and necessary to me. Just like how we need food, water, shelter, warmth physically, we also have a bunch of emotional and psychological needs that are important to literally our, I was going to say functioning, but then yes, our functioning in a way, because without all these emotional and psychological needs, yes, we can have food, water, and all the basic physical needs met, but then we don't have all these other very important needs met, then we're, well, I think of it as just being a living body with a dead soul. Now, just a little reflection. I just had a thought in my head, like, why was I scared of confrontation? And why did I run so much as opposed to confronting things? Because realistically, in the long run, one way or another, I would have to confront it, and I could not run for the rest of my... I could not run indefinitely. Yet my mind resorted to running away, shutting down, and getting defensive as the automatic response, as opposed to, you know, this shit hurts, but let's deal with it now, instead of postponing it and just dragging it out unnecessarily for years. And because either way, again, you will have to deal with it, and then whatever happens will happen, anyway. Why drag it out? And that's just a thought that just crossed my mind. I was gonna say mouth. No, I was gonna say mind, and I'm saying mouth, and I don't know what it is. I think one explanation for why I kept running is because my nervous system was very dysregulated, and my nervous system's just not okay. It's just constantly feeling threat, hyperactivated, just going all of the time. Then I'm not in the right, I guess, I don't know how to explain it. I'm not in the right level of nervous system functioning, if that makes sense. Like, it's just too chaotic for anything else to like be worked on, if that makes sense. And it's like I had to start bringing it down to like a more tranquil state, not like a state of complete peace and calmness, because that was very hard. Just bring it down to a level that where I can actually work on stuff. And I also just remembered a line that I read from learning about polyvagal theory and how our nervous systems work. It's when our nervous system fails, we induce behavior. And this sort of links in with behaviors of concern. It's like our nervous system basically is given in, and actually I shouldn't say we. My nervous system gives in, and then my behavior of concern, or the more challenging behavior, is lashing out, because my nervous system doesn't know how to deal with it, and then that's its best way to sort of resolve the situation. And yeah, or like its best input into the world given its current state of chaoticness. Another reason was because of my really bad anxiety, and running did work in the meantime. Like, it was not a permanent solution. It worked in the meantime, as in I didn't have to deal with it in that present moment. And then that became habitual, like, oh, I'll deal with it tomorrow or whatever. And then I don't end up dealing with it. And then it's like, oh, I'll deal with it like next week. And I don't end up dealing with it next week. And then it becomes a prolonged cycle of postponing for years. And that's how it dragged out, because it was like postponing it felt better than having to face all this shit that I didn't want to face. And also, hearing the truth is hard. It's like, I don't think anyone likes hearing the truth, and I'm no exception to that. I definitely did not like hearing the truth when I was younger. I definitely didn't, because it hurt, and I didn't take it well. And also, hearing like that I'm wrong, and even constructive criticism and stuff, it fueled my anxiety in seeing myself as an awful person and a failure. Like, if someone said something to me, even non-maliciously, that conflicted with what I know, I saw that as, I shut them down, because I didn't want to be seen as a failure. My ego is like, you are above this person, because you're right, because you are not a failure, and this person doesn't know what they're talking about. It threatened my sense of worthiness, because if I'm a failure, this is a chain. If I'm a failure, then I'm worthless, and I'm a nobody, because I can't get anything right. That's the chain. And that's why I got defensive, because I didn't want to go down that path. People call me out, or something I said is not accurate or right. I made a mistake. I'm a fuck up. I'm a failure. I'm worthless because I'm a failure, I'm a nobody, no one loves me. And then that links back again to the very, very core human needs. If I'm a nobody and nobody loves me, then that threatens the very core human need of belongingness, connection, feeling loved, valued, and connected. I hope I'm trying to put the picture together for all of you, because this was something I didn't realize when I was younger. It all links to a bigger picture about core human needs. Now that I've mostly overcome my fear of confrontation, I like hearing the truth. I would rather people spit the truth at me than give me a reassuring lie, which I hate. I hate lies in general because I'm a very honest person, and I'm the most awful lie. Like, I'm the worst lie in the world. I cannot lie even if I tried. It doesn't work for me. Firstly, it would wreak havoc inside of my internal world because it goes against who I am as a person and what I live by. And secondly, it will just show that on my face, my body language, that I am in fact lying because I can't fake it. It doesn't work. Yeah. And also hearing the truth and stuff, and even not running away from hearing other people's opinions and thoughts and beliefs and views of the world and understanding of the world, it opens up my eyes sometimes when I hear different experiences, and it gives me food for thought, which I like, because food for thought gives me stuff to digest, to reflect, and sometimes challenge my existing views, and I'm like, and just opens up a lot of doors for me. If I just have my current view of the world and am not open to hearing anything else whatsoever, then I'm just stuck in this thing. I'm just like hugging it forever, and no new input is going in, and that would lead me to be stagnant and not grow whatsoever. I just remembered also another part of emotional maturity now that I've gone out of that whole let's see, running away thing a lot of the time, is being able to hold space to hear differing views. I think that's another very important part of emotion and psychological maturity, is not getting reactive and attacking people for holding different views of the world or certain topics than myself. For example, someone who's transphobic. I'm not saying I like transphobia or that I condone transphobia, but it really shows to me, like, if I end up bashing people and calling people an idiot and just responding in a not very nice way to people who are transphobic, then I see that as a reflection of me as a person, not them as a person, the way I respond, because I let them, the transphobia and the person spewing transphobia, control how I respond to the situation. I don't control how I respond. The way I respond is put into the other person's hands, and that is emotional maturity. And I know that because as I got more mature, I don't let that I don't let that lead me to be ragey and rage at people. I used to be pissed at transphobia a lot, and I was just like, why the fuck are these people like this? And just like, I just had a lot of anger and like resentment towards people who are transphobic and transphobia. But now, again, I'm not saying I like transphobia, but it's like, okay, they have a different view of things and trans people, which is unhelpful. I will not deny that whatsoever, and it is damaging, not denying that either. But I ask myself, where did they get this from? I tend to say, no one comes out of the womb and be like, I hate trans people. No one does that. It's like, the world we live in incorporates all of this shit into our minds, and it's like the person's environment, the people they surround themselves with, and stuff like that. What they see online, it's not someone comes out of the room, boom, I love transphobia, I'm gonna be transphobic when I grow up. It doesn't work like that. Like it's such a multifaceted picture, and there's so many different factors and elements that go into this, and the way they behave too. It's so many things. It's not just one thing that leads the person to be behaving that way. Place circling around my point. Being able to hold space to talk about being able to hold space to respect both people, the different people's views, even if we may not agree with it or like hearing it, like leaving space for it to be heard. That is one other side of emotional maturity. I'm going to finish with this analogy from Dr. Gabor Mate again. He is a researcher, and he's also a physician who's very specialized in the field of trauma, especially childhood trauma and how it affects us and stuff. I do recommend checking out his content on YouTube and his speeches and his interviews. It's very insightful, and the way he talks about trauma and how it affects us is beautiful. But one analogy I remember from a video is him saying like, yes, people may, like, an analogy is a gun, right? The trigger is one part of the gun. And yes, people may trigger me or set me off, but that's only one part of the gun. He was like, who's carrying all of the ammunition and the explosives? And that would be me. That would be you. We are carrying all of the ammunition and explosives inside. And without, for example, if only the trigger works in a gun and all the other parts of the gun are not working, then, well, I don't know about guns, but I'm very confident that if only the trigger works and none of the other mechanisms in the gun, if none of the other mechanisms in the gun work, then the bullet won't get fired. If only the trigger works and nothing else works, it won't set anything off. And reflecting on that analogy, it's like, yes, people might have control of the trigger, but I have control of the entire mechanism of the gun, and I hold the ammunition and the explosives. And if I don't allow people to set off my ammunition, even if they press the trigger countless times, then it ain't gonna work. And that's I love that analogy by Dr. Gabor Mate. And basically, the trigger is in my hands, but it might be snatched off me and then put into other people's hands, but the rest of the gun is in my hands. And yeah, trigger on its own ain't gonna do anything if the rest of the gun is broken or out of the person's control. In summary, for me, emotional maturity is being able to regulate emotions, control emotions. But the best way for me to explain it, the biggest element for me is being able to control myself in the face of the world around me. Like being able to regulate my internal world and my own responses regardless of what happens in the outside world around me. Being able to regulate me internally regardless of what happens outside of me. And to do that, work requires confrontation. Thanks for watching, folks, and I will see you in the next video.